Now, I'm going to give a little bit of a backstory to introduce my guest. In my book, Roundabouts and Firewood, A Mental Health Approach for Irish Guys, the book is dedicated to JL. Now, the reason I used initials was to protect privacy. About 10 months before I finished the book, I was struggling to finish it, I should say, and I decided I would write to a particular person, and that person is JL. And the reason I chose to write to this person, because I knew there was this young man who had dealt with what we refer to as heavy shit, and he was doing everything I recommend that one should do when dealing with what I call the A&D monster, the anxiety and depression monster. The anxiety and depression monster is the enemy. You have to do battle, and to do battle, you have to take action. And I knew this young man was taking action and was improving his life because of it. Now, after I published the book, I let him know. I said, hey, I just want you to know that I dedicated the book to you, but I just used your initials. He was appreciative of that. And then I said, hey, if you're ever interested, and I know you are a very private person, I would love it if you would do a podcast, because I think your voice, you saying things, is going to be far more powerful than me saying things, particularly to young men. And he agreed to do that. So I am delighted to introduce Jonathan, who is on podcast number 2. Now, as I had said, as a pre-interview, things that we had discussed was that I wasn't going to get into any specifics with you, and I'm not going to get any specifics with you. I wrote my books, Roundabouts and Firewood, and I explained the things that I personally went through. But I'm 57, American, and we share too much. But I'm going to let it suffice to say that you went through some shit and experienced bad shit, and that's as bad, and that's how I'm going to summarize it. Would that be true?
Yeah, that is true.
Okay, so and I'm not going to ask the specifics on it again. I'm not going to. Now,
Yeah.
One of the things I'm going to ask you then is, when you were going through the heavy shit, particularly what you're Kian's age, so you're 21 or 20 right now.
20 now.
Okay, so you're 20. When you're going, when did you first start really going through some things that were unpleasant?
Probably around the age of 14.
Oh,
So
that
I'd been
early.
second year of school.
Okay. And
So
when okay, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
it was probably the worst time. Well, obviously, it's never really a good time to be in that sort of mental state. But obviously, just after finishing first year of school, then starting second year, going into the junior cert, it's not really a good time to start going through stuff, if you don't.
No, I wouldn't. Having raised a child in Ireland, no, that would not be. I would never call that the ideal time. Hey, it's
No.
a good time. Like the junior cert's next year. All right, it's time for heavy mental shit to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
Because for me, nothing happened. I didn't recognize that anything was happening until 27, and that was with anxiety, and that's when my OCD was just coming along. But in fact, if you'd looked at me at 20 or 21, my life, how I was responding to things, it was just the opposite. I was fine with everything, but little did I know the snowball was rolling, and there was probably some hints at it. Now, one of the things for me is like when you have not experienced anything for the first time, which is obvious because it's the first time, is that it's really overwhelming because you have nothing to go on to go, oh, I remember when this happened and I'll work through it and stuff like that. So when it was initially happening to you, and particularly Yeah, I mean, when you're saying, when you're 14, 15, or 16, and you're going through, that's when you're the most highly sensitive with puberty and all that kinds of things, and the hormones are raging and all that kind of stuff. I mean, when all that stuff was going on, what was it? Was it overwhelming, or was it just, what is this about, or was it confusing? All this. Give me your perspective.
Well, when it kind of first started, obviously I didn't really know why I'm feeling like this, what's happening, because I thought like I didn't know if it was something that I was personally just going through myself or something happens just naturally at that age. So obviously I was a bit overwhelmed, confused, didn't really know what to do, and didn't really know what to think about the situation. And I didn't have any solutions or any way of thinking, okay, this might help me in this certain year or certain time. So back then, I started just going to see a therapist at the start when I was about 14, and I always thought like for therapy they would start giving me the answers to how to help, how to physically and mentally get a better state. But then I realized only recently that it's not like that. They're just, as you said to me before, it's more like a coach with an athlete. Like they're going to give you tips, but you're only going to be able to do it yourself.
Right,
So
and just to add to that, and I do that, the same sort of thing. If you've never been to a therapist, you have. You have an idea what a therapist is or what therapy is, but I was fortunate that the first therapist I went to, because it wasn't with the three subsequent ones, he said to me right off the bat, he says, "Look, I'm a consultant. I can assess your problem, help you assess your problem,
yeah,
and I can offer you strategies based on my expertise. But in the end, you have to decide what works for you, and then you have to do the work. Much like as I write in the book, that if I want to improve my backhand in tennis, I'll have a coach. I'll go to a coach, and the coach will look at what I'm doing. He'll see how badly I'm swinging the backhand. He'll teach me some things, and then, but over the course of the week, I need to do the work. So the work really comes down to you, and there is some people have this idea that I can go to a therapist and then I leave and everything's fine. But no, it's just you're just doing the work, and then there's going to be progress. So anyway,
yeah.
sorry for interrupting you there. But so you went to the therapist, and then what happened?
Well, I like at the same time it was kind of nice because then it gives me someone to vent to. But then obviously like it takes a bit off my chest. But then I'm thinking, okay, how how am I going to help myself? How is this person going to help me? And obviously at that age, as I said before, I was confused and overwhelmed. I didn't really know what was happening to me, what was actually going on in my brain. So after I'd say a few months in therapy, I started taking antidepressants, which personally they didn't work for me. But that's the thing. Like, I think it also just depends on the person, and also there's so many different types that maybe one may not work for me, but it might work for someone else. It's the same with different solutions with it. So,
Oh,
sorry.
oh, no, no. Well, one of the things in both the Feeling Good and When Panic Attacks by Dr. David Burns, someone who I reference quite a bit, he was a psychiatrist who used to give out a lot of antidepressants, and then he got really heavily into cognitive behavioral therapy. His one of his instructors was the father, Albert Ellis, the father of cognitive behavioral therapy, and he in both of those books he outlines how, yeah, antidepressants might work initially, but in the long run, generally they won't work that well. Now, I want to be clear, whatever works, works. So I'm
Yeah,
never saying don't do something. So I want to be very clear about that. But but with the data has indicated that that therapy and a number of things that you do will work far better. But again, whatever can get you there, please please do it. So I'm never going to say
exactly.
don't do something, don't do
Yeah,
something. But I'm always going to also say that the effort that you put into your life is going to be the biggest factor in whether you get better. When I arrived in Ireland, I had been experiencing anxiety issues, the OCD, where I was aware of it for about 13, 14 years. And
Hmm.
and so it's 27, yeah, about that time, and just being very confused by it. And I was very confused by it as an adult, so I can only imagine what it's like to, or I can't imagine what it's like when you're going through that kind of hell as a teenager. Um, but when I arrived in Ireland, and then I ended up splitting up with my wife, and then Kian, that's my son. And then I was raising him, had him half the time. And then then depression announced itself, and in no uncertain terms. And one of the things that I look back on, I go, oh, this is what I should have been doing if I had known, or oh, I actually did a few things right. So what I'm going to ask is, when you were going through all this stuff, and particularly now that it's 6 years later, if you were going to communicate to a 14 or 15-year-old who's in the throes of depression and has no idea, like just like you, I have no idea what is this thing about. Besides going to a therapist, what are things that you would recommend as far as lifestyle that you would that to help so that they can help themselves get better?
Well, I always think, just personally for me, the thing that helped was just keeping busy, because I found myself with the pockets of the day that I'm just not doing anything, just lying down in bed. I'm just overthinking continuously. So my thing was just keep busy, have a schedule laid out, like even if it's only like five things, I don't know, watering the plants, bringing the dog on a walk, stuff like that. Because it just means you have something else that you know in the day, all right, I have to do this next, I have to do this next. So you're not, for me anyway, I was constantly thinking about something afterwards, so I couldn't actually properly think about what's going on in my head. So that's sort of something that did help for me. But also a main thing that did help for me was the gym back in the day. So obviously in the gym, you're working on yourself, and it does improve your mood, because what even I know is scientifically improves your mood, but also when you know you've done something for yourself, so you've come out of the gym session and you've been like, great, I've done this for myself, no one else, I feel happy. So that was two of the main things that helped me through it. But I only learned that maybe 2 years later on from the initial start, I say.
You had mentioned that. So did you wrote out a schedule, or is this something? So you were like, this is a few years later, at the age of 16 or 17, or
Yeah. So like I'd say during fourth year, I started doing that stuff. Maybe a bit earlier on, I started doing that stuff, obviously including like my school routine, and then including like after school sports. I was playing hockey, rugby, and football at the time, so I was still quite actively doing stuff like all the time back then. So I didn't really have too much stuff, I think, to fill in during the day, because I was just constantly on the move. But I just kind of thought the day beforehand, right, what am I going to do the next day? And it's just that I feel like that kind of stopped me from overthinking in my head at, like, let's say 2 or 3 in the morning, because then you're just thinking, what am I going to be doing the next day? So I was just constantly thinking, what's the next step? What am I going to be doing? And it does keep it off your head, but I feel like it's just keeping it off your mind. And I feel like once I don't know, you might be tired, you might just actually have nothing to do, even though there will be some small things, but you just might be tired and just sitting to yourself. I feel like it can dawn all on you then in that moment.
right, right. Yeah, one of the big things is to be able, I mean, writing, one of the things I do every day is I get up and I write down what is on the schedule today, so I can check it off. It's my daily goals. And the nice thing about number one is write daily goals. And then as soon as I write the daily goals, and then because I'm doing it on computer, then I highlight it that, okay, I did this first one. And every time you do one thing, you get confidence that you feel good that you got one thing done, so you'll want to get more things done. So it's
Yeah.
one thing I would definitely recommend. In fact, these are all the things that I go, oh, when I was lying on the couch staring up at the ceiling, these are things I should have been doing far more frequently. I just sort of randomly was figuring out, oh, when I do things, I feel,
Yeah.
and this is one of the things I always say, it's like, you don't necessarily have to feel good. You just want to make sure you feel less bad. And eventually you'll feel good. Don't get me wrong. You will feel better, but you will end up. We've sort of alluded to this, but again, if we're talking to that 14 or 15, or it could be a 20, could be 25, but particularly that teenager who's like, the stuff is becoming overwhelming and things, what are things to avoid doing? I mean, what are some of the missteps maybe you took? Because as I said, my big misstep was just sitting on the couch when I should have been out.
Yeah. I feel like kind of just sheltering yourself to yourself, not really interacting with people, it can lead you into that overthinking mind, even if it's middle of the day. But also, I think the main thing was I was too afraid to say it to my parents, because obviously at that age, I feel like, personally for me, I wasn't as close to my parents back then. So it was kind of, I didn't really want to say anything to them. But then once I did finally say it to them, because everyone's parents love them at the end of the day, and they always want the best for them. So obviously, as soon as I said that to them, they start looking into things that would benefit me. So that's how I got into therapy and started taking antidepressants. But I think that's the main thing. I feel like it's the hardest step for people is to actually not even admit, but just be able to say it to someone like, hey, I'm feeling like this at the moment. I don't really know what to do. I don't really know what's going on. And that's, especially at that age back then, I didn't really have a clue what was going on. So I think that was the best thing for me, was just to say it to my parents.
Right. Yeah,
so
go on, sorry.
I think it can differ at different ages though. Like, let's say, I don't know, if you're at 20, you might be, because you're an adult there, you might be thinking, okay, I need to take all this load onto myself, which is never the case. Like, especially with something like that, you don't want to just keep it to yourself and not, obviously you don't want to be saying it to everyone because it's personal business, but you want to have someone there that you can talk to and they can kind of try and help you.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that it's funny that you say that when COVID, this is something, this isn't a mental health issue, but when there was with COVID, I worked with schools and I lost all my work, and so I'm supporting Kian. And we're in the apartment by ourselves, and I was getting really stressed out. Well, I shouldn't say. I mean, it is relevant to mental health because then I'm freaking out about paying the bills and all those sorts of things. Mm-hmm. And I remember that would have been when I was 53, and I ended up just having a chat with my mom, and I was like, Jesus, I'm feeling terrible right now because of this and this. And my mom said the thing that I always need to hear. And she said, all right, you got a problem. Now get yourself up, get to work, and figure out how you're going to do it. And, if you need some support, let me know. But, just get onto it. So, I mean, two things happened. One, I told my mom. So I just want to be clear. You're never too old to talk to your parents about stuff. And one of the things as a parent, I can say this from the other side, is that you never stop being a parent. And so when Kian comes to me at the age of 20, I go, yeah, I remember that at the age of 20. Those are sort of some of the issues that you deal with. And there's never a time, and parents always want to hear. In fact, there's many parents I know whose kids aren't talking to them and would love it if they just said, hey, dad, mom or dad, hey, I'm having this problem. So definitely with your parents are always up to hearing it and want to hear. They don't want to hear that you've been going through something for 2 or 3 years and you never mentioned it to them. So there's parents always want to be clear about that. Oh, one of the things I was going to mention also was just about when you had mentioned in the gym. One of the things when I was actually just reading parts of Feeling Good last night as well, is that Dr. Burns notes that if you take anybody who has no mental health problems at all, and well, I don't know if there's such a person, but very few mental health problems, and you isolate them, you cut them off from the world, so they have no interaction, they don't do anything. You do that for a few months for them. For example, if you put someone in what is that? Solitary confinement in prison. Solitary confinement in prison is supposed to be the worst because you're cut off from everything. But you take anybody, and they will end up experiencing depression because you've cut off from the world. And one of the things, I don't know if this happened to you, but well, when you go to the gym, even if you're working out and you're doing something for yourself, but you're around all these other people, and you may not be talking to anybody, but at least you're interacting with the world. So what I know that you do a lot now with your friends and things of that nature. Was there any periods where you made the mistake of not hanging out with your friends and cutting yourself off, or were you always good about participating? And because I know when I was in Trulli, I didn't have any friends, and it kind of sucked, but I was trying to get some.
Probably around the third year period. Around third year, I wasn't really reaching out, wasn't really as close with anyone. Like, I kind of went away from my friend group at the end of second year, going into third year, so I didn't really have too many people to talk about. I was still friendly with people, but I wouldn't really talk to them on a daily basis, and if I got home, I wouldn't really be chatting to them on my phone or anything. So it was quite just me back then.
Okay.
Then heading into the fourth year, I got better talking to people, stuff like that. But it was mainly just a third year period for me.
Okay. Yeah, one of the things that I just never realized, as someone who thinks of himself as so completely independent, is how we are social creatures, and we need to be part of some social system. And so whether you're part of a tennis club, a basketball club, or it doesn't have to be sports, but anything, but you do want to participate. You do definitely want to participate in the world. So another big recommendation, and which is a tough one if you are when you're going through depression. I mean, the two big things I remember was that I felt like a real loser, and I thought that things were hopeless, and those aren't the two. Those aren't the two motivating feelings that you want. You're like, hey, I feel like a loser and things are hopeless. Hey, I want to go out and hang out with people. And I had to battle through that. So anyway, these are just things to consider. In the book, I mentioned the FABFF toolkits, and FABFF means, when it comes to mental health problems, FABFF, fuck it before it fucks you, because mental health problems will fuck you over, and you got to be able to respond. So you got to take action. So the whole thing for me is like, you always got to take action. As far as what would be I put for the FABFF toolkit, number one, it comes from The Art of War. If you read The Art of War, it has all these things you will do as far as taking on the enemy, and I call it the anxiety and depression monster. When you're taking on the anxiety and depression monster, you always want to put yourself, just as you would in the Art of War. Everything he talks about. Sorry, I shouldn't say everything he talks about. In The Art of War, which he'll say things about, if you're near a salt marsh, you should end up doing this. And so there's all these things. But what I realized, what he was always saying, is always put yourself in the best position. And so the best position is where you have the fewest vulnerabilities. And if you have the A and D monster, the anxiety and depression monster, coming after you, you need to be in the best position to take it on. So when you get up in the morning, what is the best thing? What is it that you need to do so you're going to be able to deal with whatever comes at you?
Personally, for me now, it's music. So first thing in the morning, I put on hard techno first thing in the morning, because I feel like it gets the adrenaline pumping. Like, it actually really does, and it just wakes you up completely. Like, even now, I've given some songs to my mum because she's asked for them, so that because she realizes that it actually wakes you up a lot. Mm-hmm. So that's the first thing I would do in the morning. And it kind of, I don't know, sometimes I'd actually get up and I just start dancing, because you just feel good, and it's the sort of music I'd be listening to on a regular basis anyway. So, like, when I start hearing it, I get into a good mood, and then I'm just happy when I get out of bed. That's
So
personally what works well for me.
okay, yeah. I mean, with that, I mean, it seems like two things are going on. That because it works, you hear the music, and you've conditioned yourself to that. I hear this music, and I'm going to be elevated because you are elevated.
Yeah,
I mean, whenever I write, I have a writing playlist, and so when I sit down, I put on the playlist and I start writing, and I know I got to get into my zone of writing, and so if I'm not on it by the first song, I'm definitely into it by the second song.
yeah, yeah.
The other thing that was kind of cracking me up is that when I was just we had seen each other a few weeks ago in Dublin, but when I met Kian, we ended up having a discussion. He was telling me I was an old fogey for the music I listened to, and all that stuff. So when you said the techno and stuff, and I was going, Kian, whatever you like, and what I don't
Yeah,
like, I
yeah,
don't
yeah.
like, and stuff. But yeah,
It's
he was just
preference at the
giving.
end of the day.
Yeah, but with Kian, with father and son, it isn't necessarily. He was just telling me I'm just an old fogey and don't understand life and things of that nature. So that was funny when you said the techno. But I did say, well, when you're at the gym and stuff, I can see how it works and things. And he goes, yeah, well,
Yeah,
you just
yeah.
don't understand what it's out there when you're at a club and things of that. And I'm going, no, I don't. I'm 57 and I'm not clubbing, but so there's an actual reason. So I mean, for me, I need to get up, I need to write the goals, and then I need to make sure that I'm accomplishing little things throughout the day. So after you've gotten up and you've done and if you're listening to your music and you're dancing and you're moving and all that, where are you going from there?
Well, then I kind of already have the layout of my day already in my brain from the day beforehand. So usually I'd get up, I'd have my cup of tea, have my food, and I'd just start getting cracking on with the day. If it's just clean in the start, just start cleaning. Like today, I woke up, made my food, knew I had to go down to the barbers, and I had to do a few just small little errands that I had to do. So that just filled out my day up until about 2 hours ago, and then my ma came home, so I was just chatting to her. So that's the sort of things. It's just mainly keeping the stuff working, especially now. Like I work full time, so I'm off today, but the majority of the time would be right. Get up, have my food, and then go straight to the gym, go gym, then work, and that just keep my day full, basically.
It's all about, and we've talked about it before. It's all about taking action, and one of the
Exactly.
things I mention is because when people think about talk therapy, and yeah, you go in, you see a therapist, you're going to be talking for an hour, but that's the 1 hour out of say the 100 hours that you're awake.
Yeah,
So 1% of the time you might be talking, but 99% of the other time you need to be doing stuff. And it's
exactly.
the more you do stuff. In fact, and I know I keep bringing this guy up because, but because he's such an authority on it, he says, Dr. Burns will say that if you do anything, just anything, as long as you're active with anything, you will experience some improvement just by any action. I am not suggesting for a second that people should get rid of their phones. In fact, if you use it as a tool, I think it can be very effective for many things. But what is the downfall with the smartphones and the screens and things? I mean, from your 20-year-old perspective.
Yeah. Well, like social media, it can be good and bad. Like I feel like it can be good for obviously it can help you in certain ways. Like you can learn stuff good for business, sort stuff like that. But I think the bad thing is people can post what they want, and it can be anonymous if they want. And also, you're kind of looking. People are only really posting what they want you to see. So all the good things that are happening in their life. So you might just be looking at someone's Instagram or something like that and be like, oh, how are they always happy? How are they always doing something they like? Do you know? But that's just something they want you to see because everyone's so different. Like I can go ahead and just post a picture, I don't know, like if I was away and just be like, oh, having a great day, blah, blah, blah. But it's just all for the social media. And I feel like also you can be anonymous so people can say stuff. And especially now with TikTok, I feel like a lot of people on there keep themselves anonymous so they can just say bad things about people because obviously you're putting yourself on screen and a lot of people just find a way of just thinking it's funny to just abuse people. So I think it's good and bad, but I think it can be worse for you than good.
Well, I write in the book that having there's never a better time to have anxiety and depression than right now, and I mean that because in the sense that you can access experts and all these different people who have their thoughts on it, and you can actually formulate a plan, and so or so, for example, my wife, who's 57, and she's still a swimmer, but she used to be a swimmer at the university, so quite athletic and stuff. But as we get older, our bodies slow down, and so she does a workout with I think a woman from the UK who's on a YouTube channel, and so someone who is also of that age in the mid 50s or early 60s. So there's if we use it as a tool, it can be quite effective. But if you use it just for it to consume your life, now here's a question I have because I'll be in a restaurant sometimes and I look around and it seems to me, and I could be wrong, I'm often wrong, that nobody actually spends time daydreaming or thinking, but everything needs to the entire time your phone, you always have to have your attention on something and be entertained or something like that. What do you think about that?
I think you are correct, to be honest, because like I find myself, even if I'm just, I don't know, sitting on a bus and you're just kind of waiting and you don't really know what to do, and the first thing in your head is, right, I'll just go on my phone, see what's up, what can I watch, stuff like that. And I feel like it's just down to having it on your personal the whole time, instead of being able to just look out and just daydream, as you said. But I think that happens with everyone. Well, the majority of people anyway.
Yeah, and on that one, I would say it's not an age thing because when I look around, I mean, I have a few rules. For example, Kian, because he won't do it. When I go to a restaurant, it's like we don't bring out the phones at a restaurant. We just we're gonna actually have a conversation. But for example, when you're on the bus or anything like that, I would just recommend take some time just to think about things. And if you've seen something, and if you need to watch a 2-minute YouTube video on something, on some perspective of life, and then just think about it and lose yourself in the daydreaming. Another thing that I would recommend, this is something that I'm going to start really promoting, is don't walk and look at your phone at the same time. Now, if you got music on, fine, things like that. But if you have to watch your phone while you are walking, you're missing the experience. You're missing the experience of just enjoying the motion of walking and thinking and things of that nature. So put away your phone when you're walking. That's my recommendation. And I know that anybody can say you're an old fogey. And of course, I have things to do. I have people who are texting me, and I need to get back to that, which I don't really get. But I would just strongly recommend. The other thing I'm always amazed. Anyway, so I'm going to leave it at that. I won't say more about that. In Biffy Toolkit number 2, which is the title of that chapter, is why assholes don't commit suicide. And my tongue-in-cheek joke is that assholes don't commit suicide because they have something to do every day, and which is to be an asshole. And what I take and I go on to discuss how Viktor Frankl, a psychotherapist who spent time in the concentration camps, he wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning, and he wrote about who actually survived in the concentration camps. I mean, what mental perspective you had to have. And one of the things, in fact, he went on with his psychotherapy after the concentration camps, was that you need to have a reason, a purpose. And if you have a reason or a purpose, you can get through anything. He's famous for saying, despair is suffering without a purpose. But if you have a purpose, you can suffer through anything. And we all are going to suffer through our lives. Some are going to suffer more, but suffering is part of the human experience. So, for me, it was easy. I had a kid. So I'm going through severe depression, but I got a kid, and being a committed father, I never would say being a good father, because all you can ever do is be committed. I'll leave that up to, I don't know if I'd leave it up to Kian. Because one of the things he said, as I wrote in the book, that one of the things, I mean, because the Irish are so good about slagging each other, and when we were coming home, we were in the States. We always came to the States for 4 weeks, and Kian's 10, 11, 12, and he says, "Hey, Dad, would you make more money if we came to? Would you make more money if you were in the States all year?" And because he realized how much money I was making doing my workshops, and I said, "Yeah, but if I did that, I would, I could be here all year, but I wouldn't be able to raise you." And then Kian, without just immediately responds to, "Well, you should have moved back to the States and made money because you've done a shite job as a father." So. It was a tender moment.
Say so now.
Well, he also, again, I know I keep repeating this in the book, was that my second wife, that when a few days, the morning after Kian realized she had left in the one afternoon. I mean, I woke up one morning and saw that all her stuff was gone, and it dawned on me that, hey, I think my wife left me. And so when Kian discovered it, and I explained it to him the next morning, because it was kind of a shock when he came in. And then the next day he came into the room and he says, "Dad, I want to talk to you about something. Can we have a discussion?" And I thought we were going to get all serious and sensitive. And Kian said, "Hey, I knew if I knew it was okay to jump ship, I would have left you a long time ago." So.
Oh, that's Kian for you anyway. So.
Oh yeah. Okay, totally. Thanks, Kian. Thanks for that warmth. So, anyway, but what? Back at the ranch. So being a father is important to me, and so I always had a reason to get up, no matter what. I was getting up, but. As a 14, 15, 16, 20, when you're that age, what do you have to tell yourself? I mean, so for me, if you want a purpose, and everybody's purpose is different. In fact, that's what Viktor Frankl talks about, is that, you don't go, what is the meaning of life, but rather you define your meaning of life. What are things that you've gone to, or maybe or maybe friends of yours? What do you think about when you're going through that suffering and you got to work through it?
Not too sure now. Like back then, I can't really remember that far. Like a lot of the emotion I was going through, I wasn't really, apart from the therapy and antidepressants, I wasn't really doing too much for myself. I wasn't helping myself in any way. And like, I didn't really surround myself around people in the second year. I was never really in school. So I was just quite at home in my own thoughts. And then I just got indulged by them. So
okay.
At that stage, it didn't feel like anything would help. But I didn't do myself any.
Oh, it's a mental prison.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%.
It is. I mean, even though I was up and I was going to work and I had to get more work and I had to do all this stuff, I mean, knowing what I know now, and if I was to talk to that person, I would say, hey, what you're doing is getting up, doing it. This is a temporary situation. Maybe it may be 4 to 6 months, but every day you're going out and doing something. You're incrementally getting better, even though you may not feel like it because it's incremental. But at that point, if I was to go back and I would tell myself that, hey, you're going to get better. You just got to keep doing what you're doing. And that the thing that I wish I would have been saying to myself is, hey, you're a dad. Now, I know this, you can't do this at 14. Hopefully you can't do this at 14.
Thankfully, I couldn't.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's just, because, well, I will say this: if you got if I this is the, so I want to say this podcast is for all the 14. I mean, for the 14-year-olds and older who don't have children. If you do, I don't really have much to recommend if you're experiencing depression and anxiety issues and you got a child. Although I would say, and this is not recommending having a child. If you have a child, you probably don't have time for the depression and the anxiety.
Oh, you'll be too busy anyway. So
you're way too busy. You're getting at some point you're getting prepared for your leaving cert and you're working full time. So you don't even get to sleep.
Don't have a second to yourself then anyway.
No. But that I would definitely would have said to myself, "Hey, you're doing what you need to do. Just stay with it." And it's not a hopeless situation, and things change, and they always change. But we don't get it because like I said, it's just incremental change. And when I look back, I go, oh yeah, when I did this, I was getting better, and I went out when I was always trying to be active, and just to say that. But that is as an adult who has a kid. One of the things that that I would recommend is, or at least. If not for yourself, think about your parents and the investment they put into you, and just owing just the effort, and that's all they want. That's all parents want is effort. Trust me, you just want effort. But your parents want the best for you, and if you can't think of actually getting up and doing things, think, well, I can do this one for my mom all the time she's done this for me, or my dad all the time, or my uncle or my grandparent. And another thing is, and if nothing else, if you have a pet, do it for your dog. If you just anything, find something or someone to do it for. Again, it's easy when you're it's easy when you're 41, 42, a parent who's dealt with enough things. But when you're 14 or 15, it'll be easier on you if you go find some things. I always say I've had people ask me, well, what's worse, anxiety or depression? Now, for me, I would say depression. And I'm going to tell you why. Because with anxiety, there's a certain amount of optimism with anxiety. So if you have OCD, you think all these crazy thoughts, like you think you ran somebody over and you drive around in circles and circles. That's the reason that I called my book Roundabouts and Firewood, because I got caught in a roundabout and Kian screaming at me in the back of the car. But I would think, if I just get through the roundabout, I'll get okay. Or if I just wash my hands 17 times, I'll be okay. But there's always that hope that as long as I do this if I do the compulsion, I'll be okay. So you just want to get through something to continue living. With depression, it's the opposite. I mean, it's just like things suck, and it just seems hopeless, and you're not motivated. So with anxiety, I mean, this sounds funny, but I was fortunate enough to have anxiety first, and then anxiety and depression at the same time, because anxiety gave me energy to go out and do stuff. But the worst is when you just are so down that you don't do anything. And that's when the anxiety and depression monster will just wrap its web around you. So what do you do what are some of your recommendations when you're at that low state and things seem hopeless and you feel like a loser? And I mean, just things seem so negative. What do you do at 14, 15, 16? I'll leave it at that question.
I think the main thing for me was just music and just gym. Like I just escaped from my mind when I was doing something like that. And there's an album that was very close to me, and it helped me through a lot. Like, it came out 2019, so just the year after I started experiencing stuff, and it was quite on the lines like he was going through therapy himself, and it kind of just gave an insight and that you're not the only one going through this stuff. Like there's people there, and there's going to be people there to help you. But I think it was just mainly music, because then you're kind of hyper focusing on the lyrics. Well, I am anyway, and just what they're actually talking about and their experiences. But I feel like a lot of people, they might not focus on the lyrics, because obviously music can be used in any sort of way. But that was for me, just music and gym, because gym, just you're focusing on trying to get that rep up, pushing it up, and it's just take it away.
I was on the plane when I just came back from Dublin, and this guy was 20, and he went to the same university that my wife went to back in the day. And we were talking he's a lacrosse player, and we were talking about how you always feel better after you exercise. Always.
Yeah.
So if you take before you exercise and after you exercise, you always feel better. And yet somehow, because he's 20 and you're 20, and I don't know if you do this, but you'll try to con yourself into saying, nah, I'll take a day off, or no, I'll be fine. And every time you do that, you're not as good as you would be. I mean, what do you think about that? Because for me, I always know, doesn't matter, you got to go, you'll feel better.
Exactly. There's some days where I just sack it off and think, I'll be grand, I won't do it. But then when it creeps up to about, I don't know, like 7 o'clock, I'm regretting not going, because then I'm like, I could feel a lot better right now than I actually do, and I could have actually bettered myself than just sitting around, I don't know, eating a pack of crisps, watching TV, like, you know. But I think it's that sort of thing, like, when you know you could have done something about it, you kind of feel shit you didn't do it.
And in that case, that you, there are certain things about not there's certain things that I always want to be hard on myself about, but not beat myself up. So there's a distinction between. But I always want to say, why aren't you going out right now and doing this? And so as my wife would tell you, that she's going, why are you going out at midnight? I said, because I was supposed to go out at 7 p.m. If I don't get enough sleep, well, then that's my problem, because I had promised myself that I have to do this. And so, honor the contract you have with yourself. One of the things that Dr. Burns says in Feeling Good is, in my practice, I find that the great majority of the depressed patients referred to me improve substantially if they try to help themselves. And that is a big message, that no matter what you're doing, you'll go on different, you might start one direction, go a different direction, but helping yourself. So, Jonathan, you said that you had gone to therapy and you thought what therapy would be. What is the message about the necessity to help yourself when it comes to mental health issues?
I feel like, as we said with therapy, it's someone there to give you a few tools to use. But like, as I say, in gym, the only person to better yourself is going to be yourself. Like, especially with your mental health, that's your brain, that's your mental health. Someone might be, I don't know, they might not want to help you to an extreme, but also it's only going to be you that's going to better yourself. And there's no one else that's going to put in the work. You need to put the work in, and if you don't put the work in, you're not going to see any results. And when you do start putting the work in and you do see the results, you realize, hey, if I keep doing this, my brain might become a bit better. I might feel better myself, might feel a bit more confident. And that's the thing. It's just being able to realize that no one's going to help me. I need to help myself in a way that you're taking the steps and start finding tools that will work for you.
Yeah, 100% right there. And the thing is, there are so many tools. Like as I've said, I've recommended some, but there are so many out there. And if you're working for it, you'll find them. But you have to stay in motion. You have to stay in motion. All right, Jonathan, I'm going to wrap it up there. I want to say thank you so much for being on the podcast. I'm delighted that you made it. I'm delighted, and I was delighted you made it to Thanksgiving. And I will be out there in a few weeks, and so we will go out to dinner. And
100%.
And Kian can make fun of me as he always does.
The usual stuff with Keane, anyway.
The usual stuff.